Christmas has always been my favorite time of year. The twinkling lights, the crisp winter air, and the feeling of magic in every moment. It's something I've always cherished. But one year, the magic turned to something darker, something I wish I could forget. In 2019, my girlfriend Amanda and I decided to spend Christmas in a remote cabin we'd found online. It was perfect, surrounded by snow-draped pines and far away from the bustle of the city. We wanted to escape the chaos of life and have a quiet, peaceful holiday. The cabin belonged to an older woman named Mrs. Dyer, who handed us the keys with an odd smile. "This place has been in my family for generations," she said. "It's happiest when it's full of love and laughter. Take good care of it." Her words stuck with me, though at the time, I thought nothing of them. The first night was perfect. We lit a fire, decorated a tiny Christmas tree we brought with us, and watched snow fall gently outside the frosted windows. As the wind howled softly through the trees, the cabin felt warm, cozy, and alive. But by the second night, things started to change. We were sipping hot cocoa when Amanda suddenly stopped mid-sentence, her eyes fixed on the hallway that led to the bedroom. "Did you hear that?" she asked. "Hear what?" I replied. She shook her head. "I thought I heard singing." I laughed. "Must be the wind." But Amanda wasn't convinced, and truthfully, neither was I. The sound had been faint but distinct, like a child humming a Christmas carol. We brushed it off and went to bed, but sleep didn't come easily. I kept waking up, feeling like someone was standing at the foot of the bed, watching. Each time I turned on the light, the room was empty. The following morning, Amanda found something strange. On the kitchen counter, where we'd left a bag of cookies, someone or something had taken a bite out of one. "Very funny," she said, holding up the cookie. I frowned. "I didn't do that." Her smile faded. "Then who did?" We searched the cabin from top to bottom, but there was no one else there. The snow outside was undisturbed and the doors were locked. We tried to laugh it off, convincing ourselves one of us must have sleepwalked. That evening, things escalated. As we sat by the fire, the humming returned, louder this time. It was unmistakable. "Silent Night," sung by a soft, childlike voice. Amanda grabbed my arm, her face pale. "It's coming from the hallway." I stood up, my heart pounding, and crept toward the sound. The hallway was dark, the only light coming from the crack under the bedroom door. The singing stopped abruptly as I approached, replaced by a sudden, chilling silence. I opened the bedroom door slowly, but the room was empty. When I turned back, Amanda was standing behind me, staring at the mirror on the wall. "Look," she whispered. In the faint moonlight, I saw it too. Tiny handprints on the frosted surface of the glass. They were too small to be either of ours. We decided to leave the next morning. As much as we loved the cabin's charm, something was deeply wrong with that place. But the night wasn't over yet. Around 3 a.m., we woke to the sound of footsteps, small, quick steps running through the cabin. They echoed across the wooden floors, circling the living room, then moving toward our door. Amanda clung to me, trembling. "Who's there?" I shouted. The footsteps stopped. Then, from the corner of the room, we heard a child's voice, clear as day. "Don't leave me." I don't know what came over me, but I grabbed Amanda's hand and bolted. We ran outside, not even bothering to pack. The snowstorm had calmed, and the moon lit our way as we raced to the car. When I glanced back at the cabin, I saw her, standing in the window. A little girl in a white nightgown, her face pale, her eyes dark and hollow. We never went back for our belongings. Mrs. Dyer was kind enough to send them to us, but when I asked her about the cabin, she hesitated. Finally, she admitted the truth. Years ago, a little girl named Emily had lived there with her family. One Christmas Eve, while her parents were away, the fireplace caught fire, and Emily didn't make it out. She loved Christmas, Mrs. Dyer said quietly. She still does. To this day, I avoid remote cabins, especially during the holidays. And every Christmas Eve, I leave a plate of cookies by the window, just in case. Even now, years later, I sometimes wonder if leaving that cabin really freed us from whatever had attached itself to us that Christmas. For the first few months after we got back home, Amanda and I were on edge. Every creak of the floorboards, every faint draft of wind, felt like a ghostly echo of those nights in the cabin. But eventually, life returned to normal, or so we thought. 1 year later, on Christmas Eve, we were hosting a small get-together at Amanda's apartment. The place was filled with laughter, the scent of mulled wine, and the warm glow of Christmas lights. For a while, it felt like we had left the fear behind us. But as the night wore on, something felt off. The laughter around the room seemed quieter, like it was being muffled. The twinkling lights on the tree began to flicker, even though there was no reason they should. Amanda was the first to notice. She nudged me and whispered, "The cookies." I followed her gaze to the kitchen counter. Among the snacks we laid out was a small plate of cookies, untouched, except for one. A single cookie had a bite taken out of it. My stomach dropped. "Amanda," I whispered, trying to stay calm, "did you eat one of those?" She shook her head slowly, her face pale. "Did you?" I didn't respond. Instead, I looked around the room, scanning our guests. But no one was near the counter, and the bite mark was small, just like it had been the year before. We didn't say anything to anyone else, trying to rationalize it in our own heads. Maybe one of the kids at the party had grabbed a cookie and we didn't see it. Maybe it was nothing, but deep down, I knew better. Later that night, after everyone had left, Amanda and I sat on the couch in silence. The lights on the Christmas tree had started flickering again, and the room felt unnaturally cold. Amanda leaned into me, her voice barely above a whisper. "Do you think it's her?" "I don't know," I admitted, "but I don't think she's gone." That was when we heard it, the humming, the same soft, haunting melody of Silent Night that we had heard in the cabin. My blood ran cold. The sound wasn't coming from outside or the hallway. It was in the room with us. Slowly, I turned my head toward the Christmas tree. There, among the twinkling lights and ornaments, was a small figure, a little girl in a white nightgown, standing perfectly still, staring at us. Her face was pale and translucent, and her dark, hollow eyes seemed to pierce right through me. "Don't leave me," she whispered, just like she had before. Amanda screamed, and in an instant, the girl was gone. The tree lights stopped flickering, and the room felt warm again. But we knew what we had seen. From that night on, we made a tradition of leaving cookies out on Christmas Eve. Not for Santa, but for Emily. Every year, we place a plate by the tree, and every year, one cookie is gone by morning. I don't know if she's still with us or if she just visits for Christmas. But I do know this. Some spirits aren't tied to a single place. Some are tied to memories, to emotions, to the love they lost. So, if you ever hear faint humming on a quiet Christmas Eve or find a bite missing from your cookies, don't be afraid. It might just be Emily, looking for a little bit of the Christmas spirit she never got to keep.